now up a game.
Yep, and this is one of the interesting things about these Miracles decks is a lot of people have different builds. Like, for example, previously we saw the win condition being Entreat the Angels and it being a very, very dedicated control deck, very draw-go. Earlier with Anurag Das, we saw more of a mid-range Miracles build where he only had 3 counterbalances and he had the Monastery Mentors. And here with Joe Lossett, we see him playing with all of these Vendilion Clicks and Venser Shaper Savants, which is one of the interesting things about watching these great players on the Star City Tour is that you get to see their own take on these decks. They're not stock cookie cutter decks. Everyone's going to have their own version with their minor tweaks that is going to make them better in certain situations and worse in others.
All right, so it looks like CJ is on the play. He did mulligan to 6, it seems, but he's going to start off cracking a Verdant Catacombs.
Yeah, pretty good turn 1 play.
Pilot Needle.
Yep.
Very likely it's going to name Sensei's Divining Top.
Oh, yeah. And it looks like that Joe does not have access to the wear and tears. Oh, he does have access to 2 wear and tears on the sideboard. So it'll be interesting to see if he brought them in.
Now, Joe has been a big proponent of the sideboarded moats.
Yeah.
And he has 2 of them.
That's a big deal.
And
that is partially for this matchup.
If Craig doesn't still have like a Reclamation Sage in his deck,
yeah,
he just actually can't beat that card.
Yeah. Moat is one of these old school cards. If you're not familiar with it, it just makes it so that creatures without flying cannot attack. No ifs, ands, or buts.
They don't make them like that anymore.
They do not make them like that anymore, no.
All right, so Joe is just going to play Scalding Tarn and pass the turn back. CJ is going to fall down to 18 using another Verdant Catacombs. Going to find a basic forest this time.
And this is one of the interesting things about a Miracles player bringing in wear and tear in the matchup is because we saw when Anurag Das played, he kind of got caught in a bad situation where he was brainstorming for something relevant and he kept hitting these 2 wear and tears that had no targets. But here Joe would love to find a wear and tear. And this is one of the tricky things about having sideboard cards that are specifically for your opponent's sideboard cards is because it's such low frequency that things line up in order for them to trade. But if it's something that you just absolutely need to trade in order for you to execute your game plan if it comes up, then that's a risk that you kind of have to take.
All right, well, Joe is going to fall to 19 using that Scalding Tarn for a Tundra and play a counterbalance.
And we still haven't seen an elf hit the board.
Not yet. CJ is going to crash in for 2 with his Scavenging Ooze. Let's see how he wants to navigate this counterbalance being on the battlefield.
And having the Scavenging Ooze in is a little interesting. The main thing that it does is it helps fight against Snapcaster Mage, but it really doesn't do much else. So I'm a little surprised that CJ has it in post-board. I would have expected the Scavenging Ooze to be one of the cards that he could potentially cut, but it looks like he really values the ability to fight Snapcaster Mage.
Well, Nettle Sentinel is going to be attempted. A Blind Flip is going to find a Sensei's Divining Top on top of Joe's deck. He is going to play it for his turn.
And usually Sensei's Divining Top plus Counterbalance is just lights out for the Elf deck. The Elf deck is all 1-drops, but that Python Needle naming Sensei's Divining Top really disrupts that combo. So Craig's not in a great situation, but it could be worse. Or CJ, excuse me.
All right, well, CJ is going to try and eat that Nettle Sentinel on Joe's end step. Joe's going to respond with a Swords to Plowshares on the Nettle Sentinel. Let's see what Craig can put together here. He is kind of short on mana, though.
Yeah, if you could find a Deathrite Shaman or a Heritage Druid, another card that would be great would be Gaia's Cradle, but something to allow him to be a bit more unfair with the mana would be quite advantageous.
All right, well, this Glimpse is going to resolve.
This is likely just going to be a baby Glimpse.
He did not hit another land.
Cycling or Glimpse is not exactly what you're hoping to do with it, but the card does have the potential to be game-breaking.
Yep.
Card is banned in Modern for a reason.
Yeah, it's very good.
I always wonder when Beck and Call will be played in Modern. I've seen it like played here and there as kind of a fringe thing, but
I've seen some people playing it. 'Cause
yeah.
you can, with Brain in a Jar, you can play the 2-mana version of it and fuse it.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. Wow. So with Joe Lossett, he's got 2 counterbalances. Normally an effect like that is not worth having redundancy on, but he can trigger them both, reveal the top card of one, and then crack a fetch land to shuffle the top of his library to potentially get another shot at countering it. So having 2 counterbalances is certainly better than 1 in this situation.
Plus, it also gives you insulation against an Abrupt Decay, so you
Right.
still have one.
Yep.
CJ is going to try Deathrite Shaman. Joe's just going to reveal a Spell Snare.
Would
and
you
then
ever get worried
fetch on
about
his end step?
Maelstrom Pulse?
Nah. Nah.
I wouldn't either, but that would be quite the blowout.
Just reveal a 3, right?
Yeah.
He's got Mending clicks.
How about Wear and Tear? Is that a 3 also?
You know, good question. I know it can be a 1 or a 2.
Yeah,
I don't think it can be a 3.
Yeah, I don't think it can. That was a trick question.
Why you do this to me? All right, well, Joe is still missing land drops. Maybe this Wirewood Symbiote will attack for 15 turns.
Yeah, Craig has had some, or CJ has had some good disruption with that Pithing Needle, but he has not really been able to activate his plan A, essentially.
All right, well, CJ is going to attack with his Wirewood Symbiote. Going to cast another Symbiote.
Still no elves.
Ooh, well, there's that Wear Tear. That's going to get rid of that
Yeah, that's a problem.
Pithing Needle. Even though Craig has another one in his hand, he can't reliably cast it because it will be countered.
That's going to be bad.
Surgical Extraction is just going to be countered by the Wear Tear that's on top of his deck.
Yeah. CJ's like, shoot, you got me.
You got me.
Well, he
Figured I'd try it.
Yeah, well, he knows that he's not going to have another good opportunity after this, so he could have waited till after the draw step, but he knows that with that Wear Tear in hand, the Pithing Needle is going to go away, and then that Sensitive Divining Top is going to be unlocked.
Green Sun for 2.
So one thing I believe with Green Sun Zenith, you can Green Sun for 2, but then get a creature that's only 1 mana.
Correct.
So that is a nice way you can use that card to play around counterbalance. Oh wow, and there's
a Terminus there, so he might just let it resolve. Although, is there a Gadok Teague in the elf stack somewhere that he has to be worried about?
I have to imagine that Joe is quite close to putting a lock on this game. Craig had some nice disruption to slow Joe down, but this is one of the classic things about the aggro deck and the control deck is if the aggro deck draws too much of its disruption without being able to execute its game plan, the control deck just ends up taking control later on.
Yep.
You really want to complement your disruption with a fast clock. The fast clock really is the most important thing.
Joe is going to Force of Will this just to have protection against a potential Gadok Teague. It's going to fall to 11.
It also just helps ensure that nothing really goes wrong. Now he gets to untap with top, counterbalance, even a Jace. This is where the Miracles player wants to be. He's even insulated to an Abrupt Decay. The world is his oyster, as the world often is for Joe Lossett.
Yeah. All right, well, CJ is just going to play Mystery Enforce and pass back. This is not looking good for Mr. Stambaugh.
Yeah, he can get a Dryad Arbor, but a Dryad Arbor by itself, while it gets underneath counter magic, is not going to do a whole lot by itself.
Joe's
Man, and
just
2
gonna float
Terminuses
a
on
couple
top.
Terminuses on top. Pass the turn back. Just a waiting game. All right, CJ is going to fall to 20 using his Misty Rainforest. I think we're going to see his one copy of Dryad Arbor.
And I think from here on out, Joe's going to be able to essentially go on autopilot and win this game. We'll talk through the individual sequences, but I essentially think the main takeaway of this match is just that Craig didn't have the ability to execute a solid plan A. He stumbled a little bit on mana. His Scavenging Ooze didn't do a whole lot. It didn't line up like against a Snapcaster Mage like he probably wanted.
He also has this Craterhoof Behemoth just sitting in his hand.
Yeah, things have been awkward for him.
All right. CJ is going to attack. With his Dryad Arbor, Joe is going to Miracle and Entreat the Angels.
So I thought that was a Terminus on top, but it was Entreat the Angels. So he's going to be able to gobble this up, but this, is going to give Craig to potentially cast some 2-mana spells.
I wouldn't cast a 1-mana spell.
Yeah, don't cast a 1-mana spell.
There's a top on top.
Don't do it. Yeah, and this is tough. Now Joe has the clock, and he's got the lock.
Clock and lock?
Yep, clock and lock, ready to go.
You know what? That's what this deck should be called instead of Miracles.
Clock and lock?
Clock and lock.
Or lock and clock, if you want to lock first.
Yeah, lock and clock. All right, now he's even going to start face sealing with Jace.
Yeah, sure, you can have a land.
Joe, don't give him that land. If he gets 5 more, he can play his Craterhoof Behemoth. All right, Sensei's Divining Top. Sensei's Divining Top. I got 3 pair.
Yeah, what you got?
All right, it's going to pass back to CJ. He's going to draw a Wooded Foothills. Or, sorry, a Windswept Heath.
And this just has not been CJ's game. He's on a 2-turn clock.
That did not look like the face of a man who thought he was going to win this game.
Yeah. Right. CJ's a nice guy, though. I hope he does well for the rest of the event. Seen him around quite a bit.
Joe's just going to attack, bring CJ down to 4. Now you're going to Brainstorm. Don't feel like Fate Sealing.
Joe Lossett, the Miracles Master. Always plays his own take with the Vendilion Clicks and Fencers. We didn't get to see them play out in this match, but I'm sure Joe Lossett is going to do great over the course of the weekend, and hopefully we get to see those cards in play because it's pretty interesting the way that they work.
Another Dryad Arbor for Craig. He's going to fall down to 3. 3 is basically the same as 4 in this situation.
Yep. And knocking Craig back up to 4 is the same as 3, essentially. And you'll see Joe Lossett straight. He's on the team Nerd Rage Gaming, one of the other great teams of the SCG Tour.
Yeah, him along with Matthew Tickle.
Yep, Caleb Schur.
Caleb Schur.
I used to be on that team too.
Yeah, you did.
Yep.
But now you're on Card Hoarder because I stole you.
Well, that wraps up the match. Craig draws for his turn, sees that he's got nothing left to do. Joe has locked the game out and then clocked him, and that's going to be it. Joe Lossett just takes it, does his miracle thing, and just keeps the ball rolling on getting those points, which are